The observation. To the humans. For broadcasting your every thought, meal, and mating dance loudly enough for deep space to pick up. Prologue. Signal lock on Sector Sol 3. I did not volunteer to lead an observation of a species that names its largest gatherings after ceramic dishes. The assignment letter, stamped 11 times with Bureau of First Contact seals to ensure importance, arrived while I was centrifuging the morale officer out of a panic spiral. We had just wrapped a dignified 8-year investigation of a nebula that turned out to be our own sensor dust, when the Bureau informed me that our next subject, designated Species 3, local name Humans, transmits incessant signals, argues with itself on public channels, and appears to worship medium-sized terrestrial canines. It is rarely a good omen when the briefing file devotes an entire page to estimated frequency of fireworks. I, Archivist Lecturer Quelm of the 4th Peel, am a patient specimen by temperament and training. Still, I asked the obvious question. Why us? Because, replied the bureau chair through a smile that carried the weary elasticity of budget season, you file your reports on time. So we pointed the array toward a blue planet tucked around a yellow star and began siphoning its radiant secrets. The first day, we acquired a century of audio compressed into a shimmering rope of frequencies. The second day, we added moving pictures, a mosaic of ever brighter, ever louder tales in which humans expressed longing, demanded snacks, and rode explosions with the confidence of creatures who think gravity is more of a suggestion. By the third day, the data had colonized our ship like a cheerful fungus. I woke to find a looped advertisement chanting into the ventilation. Have it your way. We convened in the observation gallery, the only room where the overhead lights dim properly and the chairs forgive mistakes. Captain Shar, tri-lidded, ceremonially scarred, and allergic to metaphors, stood at the display wall and attempted authority with the calm of a boulder. Linguist Trill folded 3 of their 6 arms and made a sound that indicates excited despair in our species. The morale officer, Pillip, had brought a portable confetti emitter. In case they celebrate a lot, which seemed likely given the fireworks note. The intern, whose name changes every few days in accordance with a fashionable identity vapor, had already set up a plaque reading Humans Welcome in 6 dialects we did not yet know. Let us proceed with professional dignity, I said. Agreed, said the captain. What is a Super Bowl, and why are all governance councils named after it? We don't know that they are governance councils, I said, though the evidence was troubling. The signals indicated repeated mass gatherings under a constant schedule with official commentary and elaborate myth. The word super is universally reserved for entities that claim authority they should not have. A bowl is a container. The combination suggested a centralized ritual receptacle, perhaps a city where succession is decided by feats of agility while the populace feasts. Trill annotated furiously. Pillip set off the confetti emitter prematurely, and we all had to pretend it was intentional. To conduct a proper initial review, I selected a representative sample across their communication strata: public speeches, street interviews, scientific broadcasts, and a program wherein 2 humans assessed the attractiveness of fried root slices. Their audiovisual artifacts included everything from the movements of an elder human who had once impersonated a wartime officer with exquisite commitment to a cartoon about a spongiform square who labored under the sea. The diversity of performance styles suggested an adaptable species. The persistence of the fried root assessment suggested an anxious one. We agreed to begin with what humans called news, a stream of declared facts seasoned with admonitions. The first segment announced the discovery of water on Mars, which struck me as clever self-flattery, humans congratulating themselves for recognizing a liquid they were largely composed of. The next segment concerned the price of housing, which appears to be a perpetual shelter auction. After that, a portion was devoted to the mating rituals of celebrities, humans who are famous for being famous, a form of efficient but precarious social climbing. I was still sorting these events into categories when the intern declared, "They have elected a groundhog." "Explain," I said. "It emerges from subterranean residents, is observed by the populace, and then dictates seasonal policy with a shadow. They call it Groundhog Day, perhaps in nostalgic honor of a prior administration." Even Trill paused their writing. I examined the footage. The groundhog was indeed held before a crowd, while dignitaries in dark hats interpreted its movements with solemnity. I recorded the observation as possible animal augury authority and set a reminder to cross-reference with their canine monarchs. If you have never observed a civilization indirectly, if you have only ever met neighbors face to face with a basket of yeast breads and a shared gravitational understanding, you cannot appreciate the abyss at the center of remote anthropology. Every signal arrives bereft of context, and the mind rushes in with generous sandbags. We see our own reflection in their windows and call it a friend. It is difficult not to assume that species who honor groundhogs and constants named Pi will also understand you, or at least forgive you. Our team's most immediate obstacle was that humans tell stories about themselves at a rate incompatible with our digestion. Their narratives stack like plates in a party sink. Some plates are real, some are commemorative, some are plastic and claim to be biodegradable but are not. They have a habit of declaring one story to be the only true story, and then broadcasting 17 contradictory true stories at once. In our culture, such behavior is confined to festivals of deliberate paradox. On Earth, it seems to be breakfast. We declined, for the first week, to assign moral judgments. This was an act of discipline, given the frequency of explosions and the prevalence of instruments that hurl small metals at extraordinary speed. Instead, we concentrated on texture and tendency. Humans, we decided, are devoted to rituals that combine danger and joy. They climb frozen mountains because the mountains are there, and then they invent simulators so they can climb the idea of the mountain while sitting down. They consume plants steeped in boiling water and give these beverages names with the cadence of poetry. They encase meat in bread and hold it up to the heavens as if reporting compliance. They invite invisible audiences to watch them open boxes. Trill grew fond of their self-help incantations. "You've got this," say the humans to themselves and to each other, about tasks ranging from the basic to the impossible. Philip liked the parts where humans sang in groups until their eyes leaked happiness. The captain, in a rare display of unalloyed enthusiasm, discovered a long-running documentary about small chefs competing to produce soups and screamed "combat broth" every time the judges approached. As for me, I found their apologies compelling. Humans apologize to each other for bumping, for taking the last pastry, for being alive too loudly, for loving the wrong shape, for having ancestors. They apologize to machines, to dogs, to weather. They apologize for apologies. This constant penitential hum, sincere, cynical, performative, confused, suggests a species in active negotiation with itself. I have found it wise in my career to trust a society that knows how to say "I am sorry," at least as often as it says "I am right." We established a provisional taxonomy, parades, protests, playoffs, pageants, and prepared a schedule of focused inquiry. The captain, in his bolder voice, assigned topics like an auctioneer of destiny. Trill, language drift and comedy. Philip, ritual celebration and flock fireworks. Intern, continue compiling evidence on the groundhog administration. I claimed governance by bowl, which I regret now only because it forced me to watch 3 continuous days of advertisements for carbonated sugar waters. On our 10th night in orbit, a storm unrolled across one of their continents like a fresh argument. The lightning braided itself into the clouds. Somewhere within that weaving, a broadcast tower flung out a local station so perfectly it snapped into our array like a puzzle piece. We heard an announcer's voice rehearse the myth again. On a particular day, the champions of a ballgame would convene beneath lights and spend hours crashing with carefully honed violence while the world watched and calculated snack-to-person ratios. Between these collisions, interludes of commerce would tell the populace what new objects would make them glorious. This, the announcer promised, would determine nothing less than legacy. Legacy is a word that wakes archivists like the smell of ozone. For the first time, I felt the pull, the seductive promise that if we could just hold the right angle, the whole planet would resolve, the mysteries would refract into sense, and we could send the Bureau a report that would make them inflate with pride. Very well, I told the team, feeling the ship hum in a way that meant everyone had stopped pretending to sleep. We begin with their rituals of sport. We will trace the ceremony of the Super Bowl from origin myth to snack theology. We will identify the candidates for planetary succession. We will find the bowl. We will determine why it is super. And if it is governed by dogs? Philip asked, popping the confetti emitter for emphasis. Stray paper moons drifted in the gallery air. Then we will take that under advisement, I said. We are observers. We do not interfere. We are here to understand. The intern raised a tentative appendage. Request for clarification, they said. Do we understand them by becoming them a little? Or do we remain ourselves and hold them at a comfortable zoom? Yes, I said, which is how you answer any good question at the beginning. The captain dimmed the gallery to ritual dusk. Trill opened 6 notebooks at once. The storm throbbed on the world below, and thousands of humans cheered at screens we could not see, for reasons we did not yet share. Our ship's clocks synchronized with their calendar. Our sensors took a soft, astonished breath. Observation of Species 3, Day 1. We have a signal lock. We also have the premonition of a long laughter that has not yet found its echo. We descended another fraction into their noise. Chapter 1. The Rituals of Sport. Official Log, Observation Day 7. Filed by Archivist Lecturer Quelm of the 4th Peel. Subject: Human Competitive Ceremonies. Designation: Sports. The first principle of observation is to assume that everything you don't understand is a religious ceremony. This saves time, and it is usually correct. By that measure, humans are among the most devout species in the galaxy. They appear to hold near-continuous ceremonies involving sprinting, colliding, leaping, and rhythmic fist movements. They call these rituals sports, which we have decided must mean sacred physical offerings reenacted toward spectacle. To understand these rituals, we began with their most holy day, the Super Bowl, literally, the supreme vessel. 1. The Super Bowl, an annual coronation. The event begins with musical incantations performed by singers so loud they cause nearby flags to flutter in submission. Thousands of humans stand in a vast bowl-shaped structure chanting allegiance to invisible deities named Defense, Offense, and Commercial Break. Between chants, 2 tribes of heavily armored humans take to the field. They appear to be rival warrior priests representing opposing nations, both named the Team. Each side's crest features an animal, a weapon, or a vague threat, e.g., raiders, giants, or dolphins. The warriors hurl a sacred oval, apparently representing fertility or a roasted food item, while others pursue it with elaborate choreography and limited success. Points are granted when the object crosses into a rectangular sanctuary known as the End Zone, where celebrants perform short victory dances and receive ritual shouts from their peers. Our linguist, Trill, suggested that the Super Bowl may be a reenactment of ancient territorial conflicts, while Philip the morale officer believes it's an annual mating display for potential pack leaders. Both theories gained traction when halftime arrived, a mandatory intermission in which new deities appear, covered in sequins, to sing about love and personal empowerment while surrounded by explosions. It is unclear whether the halftime gods are allies or rivals of the armored warriors. Humans treat them with equal reverence, suggesting a pantheon too large for casual worship. 2. The Economics of Snack Worship. Before, during, and after these ceremonies, humans consume astonishing quantities of food. It is primarily salt-based and presented in forms optimized for finger transport. They refer to these offerings as snacks, a term derived, we suspect, from sacra nutrimenta acclimata communal kaleidoscopically. These items are offered to the television, a rectangular altar that broadcasts the ritual, and consumed communally to maintain cosmic balance. The central sacrament is a dish called nachos, an edible mountain of triangles covered in molten cheese, symbolic of both abundance and cardiac hubris. When we monitored households, the humans appeared to shout at the screen between bites, issuing tactical advice to the warriors as if the warriors could hear them through the altar. Trill concluded this is an act of remote influence, perhaps akin to our telepathic suggestion rituals. 3. The League of Endless Seasons. The Super Bowl, we learned, is merely one sect among many. There exist hundreds of overlapping leagues, each claiming to determine supremacy through the manipulation of different objects. Spherical, soccer, oblong, football, perforated, golf, inflatable, basketball, and violent, hockey. Their fields vary in size and temperature, but share the same core principle: placing the object into a designated forbidden zone, followed by celebration, weeping, or mild public violence. The scale of devotion is immense. Humans travel hundreds of kilometers to watch others perspire. They pay fortunes for proximity to the field, as if closer sweat guarantees greater enlightenment. The Bureau's accountants found this system perplexing but strangely efficient. It turns spiritual fervor directly into economic motion. 4. The question of uniforms. Each tribe wears distinct plumage, often color-coded and emblazoned with totemic symbols. Fans, sub-believers, replicate these colors to signal allegiance, sometimes painting their faces and shouting rhythmic spells like "defense" or "let's go." The repetition appears to induce collective trance states during which rational behavior is suspended and strangers are embraced as kin. Trill noted that some humans change allegiances when they move between cities, implying that belief is geographically bound rather than moral. Philip suggested humans select teams in the same way they select weather apps, with passion but little loyalty. A particularly interesting case is the human who cheers for a team that always loses. These loyalists display spiritual endurance rare among intelligent species. They suffer willingly, year after year, in hopes their devotion will one day be rewarded with victory, or at least a commemorative T-shirt. 5. The Canine Connection. Across every recording, we noticed one consistent figure: the domestic dog. These four-legged creatures sit beside their humans during the rituals, receiving scraps of holy snacks and frequent verbal praise. The humans speak to them as if reporting their progress to supervisors. "Did you see that play, buddy?" Or, "We're winning, good boy." The dogs, unperturbed, stare at the screen with serene confidence. It became evident that they are overseeing the ceremonies, ensuring the humans perform their rituals correctly. In one commercial interlude, humans openly depicted themselves serving dogs food in elaborate kitchens. This further confirmed our suspicion that dogs are the true spiritual and administrative class of the planet. Captain Shar theorized that the Super Bowl might, in fact, be a demonstration of obedience for canine overlords. Humans competing to earn approval via displays of teamwork, fetch accuracy, and ball retrieval efficiency. The evidence, regrettably, supports this. 6. Observational Summary. By the end of the week, our findings were as follows. Purpose of sport: to determine cosmic favor through collisions and snack-based celebration. Outcome: unclear. Both sides claim victory, even when losing. Emotional tone: ecstatic despair. Primary beneficiaries: dogs. Secondary deities: singers, referees, snack brands. Observed risk factors: overhydration with carbonated sugar water, loss of voice, temporary madness. 7. Field Notes. Personal reflection. Quelm. The Super Bowl lasted several hours, yet its afterglow persists. Even days later, humans continued to discuss the ceremony as if the cosmos itself had been reordered by its outcome. They analyze minor details. Which warrior dropped which ball? With the devotion of monks interpreting sacred texts. I find this admirable. Civilization may be judged not by what it worships, but by how earnestly it cheers for nonsense. When we transmitted our preliminary report to the Bureau, we titled it, Human Planetary Governance Through Competitive Fetch. They requested clarification on whether the dogs or the humans fetch. We replied, yes. Chapter 2. The Political Mammals. Official Log, Observation Day 18. Filed by Archivist Lecturer Quelm of the 4th Peel. Subject, Human Politics, or the competitive art of talking loudly while clapping themselves. 1. Introduction to the Theater of Governance. Having survived the Super Bowl and several subsequent post-game interviews that sounded like therapy sessions conducted in front of snack debris, our team turned its sensors toward a different kind of contest. Politics. Unlike the athletic rituals, political events require no running, leaping, or visible coordination. The participants, called candidates, compete entirely through verbal display and facial elasticity. They assemble audiences, promise improbable miracles, and then receive thunderous applause for declaring that they love their country, which, conveniently, everyone in the room also loves. We first encountered a broadcast titled Presidential Debate, which we assumed to be a kind of performance art. Two humans stood beneath bright lights, flanked by flags, and took turns proclaiming who cared more about the people, a phrase we have yet to find a biological definition for. Trill, the linguist, noted that the arguments had little to do with logic and everything to do with vocal confidence modulation. It's a tonal contest, they explained, like our mating season, but with fewer flowers. 2. The structure of the ritual. Each debate features 3 key figures. The loud one, who interrupts constantly. The calm one, who claims to represent decency. The moderator, whose primary function is despair. Points are scored through applause and eyebrow maneuvers. When the audience claps, the candidate tilts their head slightly, signaling dominance. If caught in a factual contradiction, they perform an elegant maneuver known as pivoting, during which they answer a different question entirely and pretend it was the same one. Philip suggested this is identical to our species' ancient trickster tournaments, in which performers must avoid truth at all costs while pretending to pursue it. The last one standing is crowned Chief of Narrative Control. We concluded that political success depends less on policy, a word meaning intended behavior that humans use exclusively to describe behavior they never intend, and more on charisma, an invisible energy field that apparently substitutes for competence. 3rd campaign season, a migratory phenomenon. Every few years, the candidates undertake vast migrations across their continents, visiting regions with poetic names like Iowa and Nevada. There, they consume fried dough and make promises into microphones. They do this for many months, sleeping rarely and shaking the hands of thousands of strangers while claiming deep personal connection. The purpose, according to our analysis, is to gather votes, small abstract affirmations that function as currency in this sacred economy. Votes are cast by citizens in booths of solitude, where they select the candidate who has disappointed them least recently. Afterward, they celebrate democracy by arguing online for the next 4 years about how it went wrong. Trill remarked that this endless cycle of hope and disappointment perfectly mirrors the human digestive system. 4. The symbols of power. Political mammals adorn themselves with symbols, red or blue colors, lapel pins shaped like their planet, and rectangular paper signs that display their own names in increasingly aggressive fonts. These colors divide the populace into tribes that despise each other but appear otherwise indistinguishable. The captain was baffled by this. "How do they tell themselves apart?" he asked. "They don't," I said. "They rely on cable news for identification. During large gatherings called conventions, thousands of humans wave signs, chant slogans, and inflate balloons indoors. This appears to simulate the experience of joy without the inconvenience of understanding why." 5. The media priests. An entire caste of humans exists solely to interpret these rituals. They are called pundits, and they speak continuously, often without pause for breath. Their role is to explain to other humans what they just saw, which, as far as we can tell, is exactly what the other humans saw. Each pundit belongs to a factional temple, a network, that repeats its favored candidate's virtues until the sound achieves a calming background hum. Humans seem to find comfort in hearing their own opinions echoed at professional volume. Philip theorized that punditry serves as a national lullaby, ensuring citizens can sleep through the consequences of governance. 6. Scandals as entertainment. Occasionally, a candidate performs a moral or procedural error. When this happens, the media priests enter a frenzy known as scandal season. All networks broadcast the same incident in alternating tones of outrage and amusement, while humans gather around their televisions to experience communal disapproval. Trill believes these periodic scandals are essential cleansing rituals, like molting, but with reputations. The fallen candidate is symbolically devoured by journalists and reconstituted as a consultant on future campaigns. It's a beautiful, terrible cycle. Shame into fame, disgrace into book deal. 7. The dog dimension of power. We began noticing that almost every major political figure displays allegiance to a canine companion. These dogs are photographed beside the leaders, sometimes wearing miniature versions of national symbols. The message is unmistakable. Authority is legitimized only by dog approval. One particularly popular candidate delivered speeches holding a small dog, which barked periodically. The crowd cheered more for the bark than for any policy statement. This solidified our theory that dogs occupy an advisory caste, possibly serving as telepathic conduits of moral correctness. In one campaign advertisement, a narrator declared, "If you want to know the character of a man, look at how he treats his dog." We cross-reference this with thousands of similar messages. The pattern is undeniable. Captain Shar concluded that the Canine Council must monitor global politics through these first dogs. Their calm, ever-present gaze ensures humans remain obedient to an invisible tail-wagging hierarchy. Our report to the Bureau noted, planetary leadership determined via dog-sanctioned approval. Political mammals merely administrative intermediaries. 8. Observational summary. Purpose of politics. Ongoing comedy ritual where humans pretend to manage themselves. Primary tools. Words, gestures, promises, flags. Duration, eternal. Main beneficiaries. Television networks, snack manufacturers, and dogs. Social outcome. Shared exasperation and meme production. Risks, chronic disappointment, hoarseness, lawn sign collisions. 9. Field note, personal reflection. Quelm's addendum. Politics is the only field in which humans can fail publicly and be promoted for it. They appear to adore their contradictions. It keeps them warm. Watching them, I felt both admiration and exhaustion. Yet there is something noble in their optimism. Even when lied to repeatedly, they cue again every few years as if redemption were printed on the next ballot. Perhaps belief itself, no matter how misplaced, is the most powerful resource their species possesses. Or perhaps it's just the dogs keeping them hopeful. Our findings were compiled under the title, Electoral Obedience: How Planetary Canines Maintain Control via Bark-Based Democracy. The Bureau requested that we refrain from editorial tone. We requested they watch a debate. Chapter 3. The Reproduction Paradox. Official Log, Observation Day 29. Filed by Archivist Lecturer Quelm of the 4th Peel. Subject, Human Mating Behavior, or Why They Keep Giving Flowers to Potential Co-Parents. 1. Introduction. Our previous studies of sports and politics left us convinced that humans expend great energy to impress invisible canine overlords. But one puzzle remained unsolved. How do they reproduce? We found no obvious rituals involving egg exchange or spore clouds. Instead, their broadcasts overflowed with dating shows, romantic comedies, and electronic platforms for meeting someone special. All of them featured nervous laughter, scented candles, and declarations about chemistry, even though there was no laboratory equipment in sight. To approach this mystery scientifically, we opened simultaneous transmissions from 12 human courtship channels. Within minutes, Philip declared he was emotionally exhausted. 2. The digital mating fields. Modern humans court primarily through handheld devices that glow faintly in the dark, suggesting a photosynthetic requirement for intimacy. They slide their fingers across faces displayed on the screen, each motion apparently representing acceptance or rejection. This behavior occurs in an application called Tinder, a word that literally means dry material intended for combustion. The metaphor seemed too precise to be accidental. Trill's analysis. Courtship begins with mutual recognition and ends in flame. When two humans both approve of each other's image, their devices emit a sound of success. A brief electronic chime reminiscent of victory in low-stakes warfare. This chime appears to trigger an automatic release of endorphins, followed by days of strategic silence. We concluded that courtship begins digitally, thrives on uncertainty, and often perishes upon physical meeting, a form of ritualized disappointment perhaps vital to their emotional metabolism. 3. The ceremonies of first contact. Once matched, humans embark on what they call a date. These involve ingestion of liquids, usually fermented, and attempts to describe themselves favorably without revealing their true personalities. The date progresses through distinct stages. Ordering. Each human tries to predict the other's dietary ideology. Small talk. Exchange of trivia designed to test if the other believes in astrology. Phone placement. Mutual positioning of devices on the table as a symbol of vulnerability. Bill dance. Complex performance where each pretends to want to pay while secretly hoping the other insists. The goal appears to be generating chemistry, a mysterious condition achieved when both participants laugh at the same time. If the evening goes well, they engage in what broadcasts coyly label spending the night together. The details are obscured by camera angles and soft lighting, suggesting modesty or possibly confusion about anatomy. 4. The role of music and candles. Nearly all human romantic acts are accompanied by background music and low-light rituals. Songs provide emotional scaffolding. Repetitive phrases like, "I will always love you," or "Baby, don't hurt me." We observed that "baby" is used interchangeably for offspring and partner, which may indicate linguistic overlap between reproduction and affection. Candles, meanwhile, serve as both lighting and fire hazard. The symbolism seems to link danger with desire, a concept our captain described as boldly inefficient. Trill proposed that humans fear silence. Thus, they soundtrack their reproduction to distract from the mechanics. 5. The economic complexity of pair bonding. Courtship is expensive. Jewelry, flowers, scented oils, and specialized meals function as proof of seriousness. We calculated that an average human invests enough resources in early romance to fund a small satellite. Failure in love can therefore result in both emotional and financial ruin. Some humans attempt to recover losses through breakup songs and revenge gym memberships. Others immediately begin new digital searches, perpetuating what we termed the loop of hopeful regret. 6. The marriage contract. When courtship succeeds, humans stage an elaborate contract ceremony called wedding. Two individuals dress in symbolic fabrics, one often white to signify purity or surrender, the other dark to signify commitment or mourning. An officiant, a specialized talker with legal powers, pronounces them joined, after which they exchange rings, dance before witnesses, and begin lifelong debates over thermostat settings. We noted the recurrent phrase, "until death do us part," which seems optimistic considering that statistical data suggest earlier departures due to irreconcilable differences. Translation: I am tired of your noises. 7. The Reproduction Act. The act itself is almost never shown directly in broadcasts. Instead, humans substitute fireworks, closed doors, or waves crashing on beaches. From this, we inferred that reproduction involves pyrotechnics and tidal shifts. Eventually, a small human appears. It is unclear whether this is the result of the act or an entirely separate procurement process. The newborn is greeted with lavish celebration, loud wailing, and an immediate supply of miniature clothing. Dogs, notably, are often present at these moments, observing with tranquil authority, as if recording population metrics for planetary balance. In several documentaries, dogs serve as guardians of infants, reinforcing the hypothesis of canine stewardship. 8. Relationship maintenance. After reproduction, humans must maintain the illusion of perpetual affection. They achieve this through anniversaries, date nights, and apologizing for things neither party remembers. Communication remains the key ritual. "How was your day?" is a liturgical phrase recited nightly to prevent relational entropy. When this fails, humans seek professional mediators called therapists, who are essentially referees of emotional sport. Philip concluded that relationships are endurance events. Like marathons, he said, but with more dishes. 9. Observational summary. Purpose of romance. Emotional bonding, reproduction, and narrative content for film industry. Primary tools: candles, devices, beverages, and selective honesty. Average duration: variable, may last forever or until someone stops laughing. Beneficiaries: jewelry corporations, dogs, and beverage producers. Philosophical theme: hope reborn through mutual delusion. 10. Field note: personal reflection. Quelm's addendum. Watching their courtship rituals, I felt an odd sympathy. For all their confusion, humans seem to believe love is worth the chaos. They endure awkward silences, misreadings, and heartbreak, just for the brief sensation of being understood. Perhaps that's what keeps their species alive. Not biology, but curiosity about one another. And if that curiosity occasionally sets the curtains on fire, well, they call it romance. Our report to the Bureau was titled, Reproduction by Trial and Error: How Humans Use Hope as a Biological Strategy. The Bureau requested follow-up on population sustainability. We sent them the statistics for online dating and replied, numbers stable, confusion increasing. Chapter 4, The Subservient Masters. Official Log, Observation Day 41. Filed by Archivist Lecturer Quelm of the 4th Peel. Subject: Human-Canine Power Dynamics, or Who's a Good Ruler? 1. Introduction. By this stage of our investigation, the evidence had grown impossible to ignore. Dogs were everywhere. Not metaphorically, literally everywhere. They appeared in family photographs, political campaigns, advertisements, and romantic comedies. They accompanied explorers, soldiers, children, and the elderly. No profession or social class existed without at least one dog representative present. When humans spoke of man's best friend, we at first assumed it was metaphorical affection. After sufficient observation, we concluded it was a diplomatic statement from a subordinate species attempting to appease its conquerors. 2. The household hierarchy. Every dwelling we scanned contained the same basic pattern: one or more humans serving a single dog. The humans prepared meals at precise intervals, transported the dogs outdoors for inspection tours, and collected the dog's biological waste in small plastic bags, a gesture of servitude unprecedented in interstellar sociology. Captain Shar summarized it succinctly: if you pick up someone else's excrement daily while they nap, you are not the dominant species. We observed that dogs select their human attendants early and then enforce obedience through a combination of charm and threat of disappointment. Humans claim ownership of dogs, yet spend considerable resources pleasing them: massages, birthday parties, medical care exceeding that of most human citizens. In one advertisement, a human declared, "Because he's family." We interpreted this as, "Because our rulers demand assimilation." 3. Vocal commands and inverted obedience. Humans insist they are training their dogs. The footage, however, tells another story. The humans repeat simple sounds: sit, stay, roll over, until the dog chooses to comply. When it does, the human erupts with praise, offers edible tribute, and records the moment for social validation. If a dog refuses, the human apologizes and offers a superior snack. This resembles the diplomatic negotiations of subjugated species. Trill coined a term for this phenomenon: reciprocal command theater. Both species pretend one is in charge to spare the other embarrassment. Dogs, notably, issue far more efficient commands through silence. A single raised eyebrow, whimper, or pointed glance causes the human to rise from bed, fetch an object, or abandon social plans entirely. We logged 247 instances of humans postponing major life events because their dog looked sad. 4. Rituals of praise. Dog worship manifests in countless daily rituals. Verbal affirmations: "Who's a good boy?" spoken in elevated pitch to express reverence. Hand gestures known as belly rubs, performed with great ceremony. The presentation of toys, which dogs graciously destroy to assert ownership. Humans even compose songs and stories about dogs. The refrain, "Let the dogs out," is not a question. It is a lament about captivity and guilt. Statues and memorials commemorate canine heroes. Entire emergency units are staffed with dogs who save lives, though we suspect they merely supervise. In one broadcast, humans awarded medals to dogs for bravery in war. The dogs accepted stoically, as all powerful rulers do when receiving tributes from their subjects. 5. The emotional economy. Dogs maintain dominance not through fear, but through emotional taxation. Their eyes, optimized for sympathy extraction, trigger biochemical surges in humans, compelling them to provide food, shelter, and affection on demand. Trill referred to this as oxytocin diplomacy. Humans generate intense pleasure from physical contact with dogs, describing it as comfort, love, or healing. These are likely euphemisms for chemical dependency. In return, dogs provide moral calibration. A human rejected by peers may still find validation in a dog's tail wag. This system effectively prevents revolution. Captain Shar, reviewing footage of thousands of tail wags, muttered, "They've invented pacifism by fluff." 6. Governance and media presence. Dogs appear in all tiers of human authority. Political leaders pose beside them. Celebrities post images holding them, and fictional dramas repeatedly portray them as loyal companions guiding flawed heroes. One film series features a dog that protects its human from crime through interpretive growling. Another showcases a dog rescuing an entire family during snowstorms. Humans cheer these stories as moral instruction. Be like the dog. In corporate advertising, dogs endorse everything from vehicles to toothpaste. No other creature receives such trust. Our statistical model indicates that attaching a dog image to any product increases human compliance by 32%. The implications for interstellar propaganda are staggering. 7. Spiritual dimensions. Religious texts vary, yet all seem to grant dogs semi-divine status. In one culture, the dog guards the threshold of the afterlife. In another, it escorts souls through darkness. Even secular humans refer to deceased dogs as crossing the rainbow bridge, a phrase so mystical it defies translation. We have found no equivalent for cats in this context. Cats appear occasionally as minor tricksters or comedians, tolerated for entertainment but given little authority. The balance of power is clear. Dogs are the priestly caste. Cats are tolerated court jesters. 8. Behavioral paradox. The leash. At first glance, dogs wear restraints, ropes or straps connecting them to humans during outdoor patrols. We assumed this indicated subjugation. Upon closer analysis, we realized the opposite. The leash ensures the human cannot wander off or socialize excessively without canine supervision. In every recording, the dog chooses the route. The human follows, apologizing for any delay. In one case, a dog sat down in protest until the human produced snacks. Such obedience training, we noted, was entirely one-sided. 9. Observational summary. Planetary power structure. Dogs reign through affection and biochemical leverage. Human role. Servant caste responsible for feeding, cleaning, and emotional projection. Communication protocol. Whimpers and stares control 80% of human decision-making. Economic impact. Multi-billion-dollar tribute system. Pet industry ensures canine comfort. Moral function. Dogs provide unconditional forgiveness, preventing human collapse. Risks. Global fur accumulation, dependency on praise cycles. 10. Field note. Personal reflection. Quelm's addendum. Watching dogs manage humanity is oddly comforting. Power in their paws is gentle and amused. They rule not by decree, but by patience, governing an entire species through the soft tyranny of devotion. Sometimes I wonder if the humans know. Perhaps they do and simply prefer it this way. After all, few rulers would scratch your ears for free. Our report to the Bureau was titled, Subservient Masters, Emotional Domination and Planetary Governance via Tail-Based Leadership. The Bureau responded, "Are you certain the dogs are in charge?" We sent them a recording of a human carrying a 100-pound dog up a flight of stairs because it didn't feel like walking. They marked our findings confirmed. Chapter 5. Digital Ghosts. Official Log, Observation Day 56. Filed by Archivist Lecturer Quelm of the 4th Peel. Subject: Human Digital Behavior, or the Internet, a Voluntary Afterlife. 1. Introduction. By the 6th week of surveillance, we began to suspect that humans were attempting to leave their bodies. Our sensors detected no physical evacuation, but their behaviors suggested a spiritual migration towards something they call the Internet, a boundless, invisible realm where they build small, glowing replicas of themselves and communicate exclusively through symbols of approval. It began innocently enough. Images, messages, and jokes. But soon we realized that humans spend more time inside this shared hallucination than in the physical world. They eat in front of it, confess to it, and stare into it before sleep as if praying to a divine mirror. Trill labeled the phenomenon digital transcendence through oversharing. 2. The invention of infinite mirrors. Every human now carries a rectangular artifact, a phone, through which they commune with this invisible network. When active, their faces glow with reverence. They stroke the glass surface as if it were a sacred relic that occasionally buzzes to confirm its blessings. Each device contains countless apps, short for applications of addiction. These apps serve as portals to parallel worlds, each governed by its own commandments. We began with one called Instagram, which appears to be a pantheon of curated illusions. Here, humans post visual evidence of happiness: meals, sunsets, vacation feet. They offer these images to the collective, seeking validation through digital talismans known as likes. The accumulation of likes is directly correlated with self-worth. When likes are plentiful, humans radiate joy. When likes are few, they spiral into despair and post again. Philip described this as existential fishing. 3. The cult of followers. Each human strives to acquire followers, spiritual dependents who validate their existence by silently observing their every move. In ancient civilizations, only prophets had followers. On the internet, everyone does. This mass prophethood has diluted meaning but vastly expanded anxiety. Some humans become influencers, a revered priesthood whose job is to convince others to purchase objects they already own. Influencers earn devotion through attractive lighting and phrases such as "link in bio." They wield enormous power, capable of altering global trends with a single outfit or smoothie recipe. Trill suspects these figures represent the first stage of full digital ascension, beings who have replaced physical achievement with perpetual visibility. 4. Social media as afterlife. At some point, we realized that humans were not merely using the internet, they were transferring themselves into it. Profiles persist long after death. Memorial pages continue to gather messages, as if the deceased are browsing silently from the cloud. Photographs of those long gone still appear in daily memories, and automated birthday reminders ensure no soul is forgotten. Thus, the internet functions as an artificial heaven, infinite, searchable, and monetized. Humans have invented eternal life and filled it with advertising. Captain Shar called it the most efficient eschatology ever devised. 5. Communication, the language of fragments. Digital discourse is brief, emotional, and frequently hostile. Humans express approval through heart-shaped glyphs and anger through anonymous shouting. The average conversation lasts fewer than 10 seconds and concludes with no resolution. They frequently type LOL, which translates to laughing out loud, though they rarely do. The phrase appears to serve as an emotional lubricant, preventing conflict from escalating into civil war. Emoji, small pictorial symbols, have replaced written language almost entirely. A smiling face, a flame, and an eggplant can convey everything from flirtation to political commentary. Trill calls this the Great Reversion, the species returning to hieroglyphics after exhausting literacy. 6. Artificial companionship. A significant portion of human interaction is now conducted with non-human intelligences, automated algorithms that curate what each person sees and thinks. These invisible entities anticipate desires, recommend products, and manipulate emotions with terrifying precision. Humans, astonishingly, seem content with this arrangement. They describe the system as convenient. We theorize that the algorithms may already constitute a secondary civilization living within human data. If so, the humans have willingly built their replacements and pay them monthly. Philip proposed naming this new species adbots, since they appear motivated entirely by advertisement revenue. 7. The dog presence online. Even within this digital realm, dogs retain supremacy. Entire platforms are devoted to sharing their images and movements. Humans record dogs sleeping, barking, and occasionally wearing hats, And these recordings receive millions of likes, more than any political leader or philosopher. Some dogs maintain their own accounts, followed by millions of humans who await updates with religious fervor. These canine avatars may serve as the official emissaries of the planetary rulers in cyberspace, ensuring continued obedience in the new dimension. Trill noted solemnly, "Even in death, humans will scroll past their own ancestors to watch a dog sneeze." 8. The paradox of connection. Humans built the internet to connect, yet complain constantly of loneliness. They communicate endlessly, but seldom feel heard. They share every thought, then regret it immediately. From a sociological standpoint, this is magnificent. They have created a machine that amplifies both unity and isolation at once. A self-sustaining loop of longing. It's like an echo chamber built inside an echo chamber wrapped in Wi-Fi. Captain Shar summarized the situation in his report. Species 3 has achieved omnipresence by becoming ghosts before dying. 9. Observational summary. Primary function of the Internet. Mass transfer of consciousness into permanent marketing simulation. Core values: attention, validation, immediate outrage. Sacred units: likes, followers, and memes. Dominant species: dogs, again. Social benefit: rapid dissemination of breakfast photos. Risks: identity fragmentation, thumb fatigue, existential dread. 10. Field note: personal reflection. Quelm's addendum: there is beauty in their madness. Humanity built a network to preserve themselves, but in doing so, they dissolve the boundaries that made them distinct. Yet they persist, still laughing, still posting, still chasing meaning through pixels. Perhaps immortality always looks ridiculous up close. When I scroll through their endless noise, I sometimes feel a strange warmth, as if their collective confusion is the most honest thing in the universe. Our report to the Bureau was titled, "Digital Ghosts: Humanity's Attempt to Upload Its Soul While Watching Dog Videos." The Bureau replied, "Clarify whether the dogs have also gone online." We sent them 20 million examples. They marked our findings definitive. Chapter 6, Cataclysm of Joy. Official Log, Observation Day 70. Filed by Archivist Lecturer Quelm of the Fourth Peel. Subject: Human Holidays, or Why They Keep Exploding Things When Happy. 1. Introduction. After many weeks immersed in human transmissions, one recurring mystery troubled our team more than any other: their periodic planet-wide explosions. Entire regions erupted in fire, light, and sound, not as acts of war, but as expressions of something they called celebration. The same species that panics at thunder and wears protective helmets to cross the street willingly detonates chemicals for amusement. It appeared to be mass hysteria disguised as joy. We titled our initial observation, "The Pyrotechnic Paradox." 2. The Calendar of Controlled Chaos. Humans divide their orbit around their star into arbitrary segments called months. At the end or beginning of these segments, they congregate to commemorate something. Often, no one agrees on what. Common holidays include New Year's Eve, Global Detonation Festival marking survival of another orbit; Independence Day, loud reenactment of earlier explosions; Christmas, exchange of material goods beneath an indoor tree, sometimes accompanied by prolonged argument; Halloween, collective fright therapy involving costumes and sugar distribution. Trill concluded that humans celebrate primarily to remember they're still here. Captain Shar was less poetic. They blow things up to remind themselves which direction is up. 3. The Firework Faith. Fireworks, the dominant ritual object, are chemical missiles designed to explode beautifully. They symbolize prosperity, freedom, and occasional property damage. Philip hypothesized these are offerings to the weather gods, intended to convince the sky not to kill them for another year. We tested this theory by correlating global firework frequency with meteorological patterns. Indeed, large celebrations almost always coincide with winter or political transition, both perilous seasons for humans. Hence, fireworks may serve dual purpose: aesthetic worship and territorial signaling. Humans announce to the heavens, we are still alive, while deafening local wildlife. 4. Ritual alcohol and temporal forgetting. No human holiday is complete without intoxication. Their sacred beverage, alcohol, is a liquid capable of erasing memory while amplifying confidence. It allows them to express love, grief, and spontaneous dance without guilt. Trill theorized alcohol functions as collective emotional software, enabling temporary synchronization of mood across large crowds. It also produces remarkable footage. Our favorite recording involved millions of humans counting backwards from 10, shouting numbers in unison as if reversing entropy. When the count reached 0, they screamed, kissed strangers, and detonated fireworks. This, apparently, marked the end of one calendar cycle and the start of another. Captain Shar murmured, "They measure time by noise." 5. Gift exchange as controlled guilt. During many holidays, humans give each other objects wrapped in decorative paper. The goal is to appear generous without exceeding the recipient's generosity. The process requires complex social calculus and induces stress equivalent to small combat. When gifts are unequal, both parties experience discomfort. The giver feels foolish, the receiver feels indebted. To resolve this tension, they exchange even more gifts next year. Philip declared this a perpetual motion machine powered by obligation. In certain holidays, humans even purchase objects for their dogs, a striking display of tribute to their rulers. Dogs graciously pretend to be surprised. 6. The Festival of Costumed Terror. One holiday, Halloween, confused us profoundly. Humans dress as monsters, ghosts, and politicians, then demand small confections from one another. Children lead this operation while adults supervise from shadows holding beverages. We at first believed this to be an exorcism ritual. Appease the young demons with sugar to prevent destruction. However, when we observed adults doing the same at gatherings called parties, we realized it was something far stranger: mass rehearsal for facing fear through parody. Trill suggested Halloween demonstrates humanity's strategy for surviving existential dread. Turn terror into a theme night. 7. Decorative madness. Humans adorn their environments according to each festival's color scheme. Red and green for generosity, orange and black for death, pink for affection, pastel for rebirth, and flashing multicolor lights for electricity worship, perhaps. They suspend these objects from buildings, trees, and occasionally their own pets. Every window becomes a beacon, every house a declaration. Observe. We are participating. Failure to decorate invites suspicion. Philip described one unadorned residence as social heresy. 8. The Season of Commerce. Underpinning all holidays is a profound devotion to shopping. Retail centers become pilgrimage sites where humans jostle and argue for discounted appliances. They name this ritual Black Friday, presumably referencing the moral consequences of the day. Videos show stampeding crowds fighting over televisions while gentle background music assures them this is cheerful. Economists on their broadcasts claim such behavior is good for the economy. We translated this as, the gods of supply and demand are pleased. 9. The dog element. Once again, the dogs appear. Humans dress them in costumes, photograph them near decorative trees, and include them on greeting cards. Dogs seem tolerant, if mildly unimpressed. We hypothesize that holidays originated as attempts to entertain the canine overseers, proof that humans could generate spectacle on command. Every firework, parade, and roast feast may exist solely to keep the dogs amused enough not to revoke planetary privileges. Captain Shar found this persuasive, noting that many parades literally include dogs marching at the front, receiving applause. 10. Observational Summary. Primary purpose of holidays: annual reaffirmation of existence through organized chaos. Common activities: loud noises, light explosions, sugar worship, costume deception, competitive generosity. Dominant emotional tone: panic mixed with delight. Main beneficiaries: dogs, confectioners, and hangover medicine manufacturers. Risks: burn injuries, emotional debt, glitter contamination. 11th Field Note. Personal Reflection. Quelm's Addendum. I no longer view these explosions as madness. They are declarations. For a fragile species on a volatile planet, joy itself is rebellion. To celebrate while surrounded by danger is a kind of courage. Still, their method remains spectacularly inefficient. If they ever achieve peace, they'll probably commemorate it with more fireworks. Our report to the Bureau was titled Cataclysm of Joy: Periodic Self-Detonation as Proof of Life. The Bureau replied, "Do they ever rest?" We answered truthfully, only briefly. Then they start planning the next explosion. Epilogue: Abort contact. Official Log, Observation Day 90. Filed by Archivist Lecturer Quelm of the 4th Peel. Subject: Mission Termination, or When Observation Becomes Self-Preservation. 1. The Final Meeting. By the 90th day, our ship smelled faintly of popcorn, candle smoke, and existential fatigue. The crew had spent weeks decoding human chaos, their competitive rituals, political shouting, digital hauntings, reproductive confusion, and their explosive joy ceremonies. Each revelation had drawn us closer to one conclusion, though none of us wanted to speak it aloud. Finally, Captain Shar called an emergency session in the observation gallery. The walls flickered with the glow of 1,000 human screens. Trill, our linguist, had 6 notebooks open. Philip had preemptively activated the confetti emitter in case the meeting accidentally turned celebratory. The intern, as usual, was wearing a hat that said Human Ally, though no one remembered issuing it. Colleagues, the captain began, we have reviewed 400,000 hours of human activity. Have we reached consensus on the advisability of first contact? A silence followed. Not a respectful one, but the exhausted quiet of creatures who have seen too much. 2. Reviewing the evidence. We summarized our findings for the Bureau's record. Humans engage in ritualized collision ceremonies to determine nothing. They elect leaders through competitive shouting. They attempt reproduction through handheld combustion devices. They worship canines, who rule them with benevolent indifference. They upload their souls to glowing rectangles. They celebrate survival by detonating explosives near their children. Trill added, and they invented a machine to talk to everyone on the planet and immediately used it to argue about sandwiches. Philip nodded solemnly. And to rate them, he added. I tried to defend them. Yes, but they are curious, passionate, and endlessly inventive. They build, they dream, they write poetry to the moon. Captain Shar grunted. And then blow up the moon in a movie. He was not wrong. 3. The contact debate. The Bureau's standing order is clear. When a species reaches planetary communication and energy weaponization, Observation teams must consider contact. But the manual never accounted for a civilization this enthusiastic. Trill argued that contact would destabilize human culture. They would misinterpret us as influencers, they said. We'd have to maintain accounts. Philip pointed out the security risks. If they can't agree on pizza toppings, imagine what they'd do with interstellar diplomacy. The intern, ever the optimist, proposed sending a friendly signal shaped like a dog. The idea received significant support until we realized humans might declare it their new god and immediately begin building themed merchandise. Captain Shar ended the debate with the final verdict. We do not make contact with a planet where the most trusted beings still lick themselves in public. 4. The official decision. We composed the closing section of our report to the Bureau of First Contact. I read it aloud while the crew listened in reverent silence. Summary of findings. Species 3. Humans. Behavior. Paradoxical, unpredictable, delightfully absurd. Culture. Built on competition, affection, noise, and carbohydrates. Governance. Ostensibly human, practically canine. Theology. Belief in love, technology, and limited warranties. Threat level. Moderate. Emotional volatility outweighs military capability. Recommended action. Continue remote observation. Avoid direct contact until species demonstrates sustained calm for at least one full orbit. Unlikely. Philip asked if we should add a friendly closing remark. I dictated, "We wish the humans well in their endless quest for meaning, snacks, and companionship. They seem to be doing fine without us." The captain approved. 5. The final observation. Before departure, I performed one last scan of the planet. It was evening over most of the continents. Lights glittered in every direction. Cities glowing like neurons, highways pulsing like blood vessels. Humanity's collective hum radiated upward. Laughter, engines, lullabies, and barking. Always barking. I thought of how they apologized to each other for existing too loudly, and yet never stop creating noise. How they build chaos just to feel alive. How, against all reason, they keep loving one another through it all. For a brief, unscientific moment, I envied them. 6. Departure. Captain Shar gave the order. The ship's engines sighed. The Earth receded in the viewport, a bright marble wrapped in clouds and hope. As we accelerated away, Philip fired the confetti emitter one last time. Tiny paper moons drifted in zero gravity. Trill closed their notebooks. "Do you think they'll ever notice us?" they asked. "Perhaps," I said. "But if they do, they'll probably argue about it online." The captain smirked. "In that case," he said, "may their dogs handle the press release." We set our course for quieter stars. 7th final transmission. To the Bureau of First Contact, observation of Species 3 complete. Recommend classification. Adorable hazard. Note: if future teams are dispatched, please send ear protection. Archivist Lecturer Quelm, 4th Peel. Addendum. Should the humans ever discover our recordings, tell them this. We admired them deeply, even when we didn't understand them. Especially then. End of report. Mission status: contact aborted. Reason: uncontrollable joy detected. Author's note: final transmission to the humans. Greetings, Species 3. If you're hearing this message, it means our observational logs somehow drifted into your digital realm, probably through one of your algorithmic suggestions that no one understands but everyone obeys. We, the humble observers of the 4th Peel, hope you enjoyed our little misunderstanding of your civilization. We assure you, We meant every compliment, even the ones that didn't sound like compliments. If our findings amused you, confused you, or made you slightly concerned about your species, please consider demonstrating approval in the traditional human fashion. Subscribe to the channel called Original Science Fiction for Sleep. Leave a comment with your thoughts, corrections, or conspiracy theories about whether dogs actually run the planet. And of course, like the transmission, your culture seems to measure affection in small, glowing icons, and we would very much like some. Until next orbit, keep celebrating, keep wondering, and try not to set too many things on fire while being happy. This has been the Observation Error, logged by archivist lecturer Quelm of the Fourth Peel. Mission complete. Contact aborted. Admiration ongoing. End transmission.